Chapter 5, The Deep Strike. Webb's team departed through thermal passages that led toward the planet's southern regions, carrying portable quantum communicators that would allow limited contact with the Guardian City. They faced a 40-kilometer journey through unexplored territory, with no guarantee that the mining camps would be intact or functional when they arrived. Behind them, the evacuation of the Guardian City began. Milena had never witnessed anything like it. 10,000 beings moving with coordinated precision through passages that seemed too narrow for mass migration. But the Guardians had been planning for catastrophe since their retreat underground. Every aspect of their society was designed with evacuation contingencies in mind. The most precious resources went first: crystalline archives containing the complete history and knowledge of Guardian civilization, portable quantum computing systems that could reconstruct their technology in new locations, and genetic samples that would allow their species to continue if only a few individuals survived. Next came the population groups most essential for long-term survival: breeding pairs, technical specialists, and the educators who would pass Guardian knowledge to future generations. They moved through the thermal vent network like ghosts, their bioluminescent communication systems dimmed to avoid detection by surface sensors. Finally, the rear guard, warriors and technicians who would remain until the last possible moment to maintain the city's defensive systems and prepare the seismic weapon. Milena worked alongside Guardian engineers to modify the city's power systems for catastrophic overload. The technical challenges were immense. They needed to create a controlled explosion powerful enough to destabilize the quantum crystal network, but precisely timed to avoid harming the evacuating population. The power systems themselves were marvels of Guardian engineering. Vast thermal exchangers drew energy from the planet's molten core, feeding it through crystalline conduits that distributed power throughout the city. By reversing the energy flow and overloading the quantum resonance chambers, they could create a feedback loop that would build to devastating effect. Estimated blast radius? Chen asked as they completed the modifications. Stonesinger's light patterns painted a sobering picture. The seismic weapon would affect an area roughly 200 kilometers in diameter, with effects decreasing at greater distances. The Guardian City sat at the center of the planned blast zone. It would be completely destroyed, along with any Devourer excavation sites within the affected area. More concerning was the potential for secondary effects. Kepler 442c's geology was complex, with active fault lines that could amplify seismic disturbances. There was a possibility, small but significant, that the weapon could trigger planet-wide earthquakes that would make the surface uninhabitable for years. Acceptable risk, Dr. Okafor had said before departing with Webb's team. If we don't stop the Devourers here, they'll strip mine the planet anyway. The technical work took 3 days. During that time, Guardian scouts reported increasing Devourer activity on the surface. The aliens had established permanent bases at 6 locations around the former colony, with excavation operations extending deeper into the planet's crust. They were getting close. 72 hours until they reached the main crystal formations, Stonesinger reported through urgent light patterns. Perhaps less if they improved their drilling efficiency. The evacuation was ahead of schedule, but barely. 2/3 of the Guardian population had reached the deep thermal refuges, but critical technical personnel remained in the city to maintain defensive systems and complete weapon preparations. And there had been no word from Webb's team. Milena tried not to think about the possibilities. 40 kilometers of hostile underground terrain, with no guarantee of friendly forces at the destination. Webb was competent and determined, but even the best planning couldn't account for every contingency. If his team failed to reach the mining camps, the entire plan collapsed. The seismic weapon would deny resources to the Devourers, but humanity would remain cut off from Earth with no hope of rescue. The answer came on the 4th day, crackling through the quantum communicator in Webb's voice. Guardian Command, this is Recovery Team Alpha. We have reached the mining camps and established contact with surviving personnel. Quantum transmitter is functional but damaged. Beginning repairs now. Relief flooded through Milena like a physical force. They had made it. Against all odds, Webb's team had reached their objective and found working communication equipment. Recovery Team Alpha, what's your status on personnel and facilities? Stonesinger's translated question appeared on the communicator display. 47 miners alive and well supplied, Webb responded. Base facilities intact but minimal. The Devourers never found this location, it's too remote and well hidden. But the quantum transmitter took damage during the initial attack, electromagnetic pulse effects from orbital bombardment. Chief Engineer Martinez is optimistic about repairs. Martinez, Milena remembered the name from colony records. A brilliant communications specialist who had designed the backup quantum systems. If anyone could restore faster-than-light communication capability, it would be him. Estimated time to restoration? Stonesinger asked. 12 to 18 hours for basic functionality. Additional time needed for full power and range. 12 hours. The seismic weapon would be ready to deploy in 8 hours, as soon as the last Guardian technical teams reached minimum safe distance. They would have a narrow window to coordinate their strike with Webb's communication efforts. Everything depended on precise timing. Milena spent the remaining time helping Guardian engineers fine-tune the weapon's targeting systems. The quantum crystal network extended throughout Kepler 442c's crust, but the major deposits were concentrated in specific geological formations. By focusing the seismic energy on those primary nodes, they could achieve maximum disruption with minimal power requirements. The targeting data came from geological surveys conducted over years of mining operations, information that had seemed purely academic before the attack, but now represented the key to salvation for two species. As the countdown approached its final hours, the Guardian city grew quiet. The last civilian evacuees had departed through thermal passages, leaving behind only the volunteers who would ensure the weapon functioned properly. Their light pattern communications carried an elegiac quality, like songs of farewell. Stonesinger approached Milena as she completed final calibrations on the seismic resonance system. The Guardian's patterns carried complex emotional undertones that the translation system couldn't fully process, but the essential message was clear: gratitude, respect, and the hope that their sacrifice would not be in vain. Your people will remember this, Milena promised. When we reach Earth, we'll tell them about the Guardians, about your courage and wisdom. The response carried notes of what might have been humor, and we will remember the humans who chose to fight rather than hide. Perhaps our species are not so different after all. The final hour arrived with mechanical precision. Guardian volunteers took their positions at critical control points throughout the city, while the handful of remaining humans gathered in the command center to coordinate with Webb's team. Recovery Team Alpha, this is Guardian Command, Milena spoke into the quantum communicator. Weapon deployment in 60 minutes. Status on transmitter repairs? Repairs complete, Webb's voice carried evident satisfaction. Quantum entanglement established with Earth relay stations. We have full communication capability. Any response from Earth? Negative. The relay stations are automated, we're sending data packets, but it will take time for human operators to receive and analyze the information. We've transmitted colony status, attack details, and Guardian Alliance intelligence. Earth will know what happened here. It wasn't immediate rescue, but it was hope. Earth would learn about the Devourer threat, about the quantum crystal harvesting operation, about the alliance between humans and Guardians in the depths of Kepler 442c. Most importantly, they would know that both species had fought back. Guardian Command, we're detecting increased Devourer activity on the surface, Webb continued. Looks like they're accelerating their excavation schedule. Energy readings suggest they're preparing for major crystal extraction. The timing was perfect and terrifying. The Devourers were about to achieve their objective just as the Defenders prepared their last desperate gambit. Initiating final countdown, Stonesinger announced through light patterns that were translated for the humans. All personnel to minimum safe distance. The command center emptied as Guardian volunteers took their final positions. Milena and the remaining humans gathered around Stonesinger at the primary control station, watching status displays that showed weapon readiness approaching 100%. 30 seconds, Stonesinger's patterns announced. On the surface, Devourer excavation teams worked frantically to extract quantum crystals from formations they didn't know were connected to a planet-wide network. Their ships maintained orbital positions, ready to transport the precious materials to whatever project awaited completion in the galactic core. 20 seconds. In the deep thermal refuges, Guardian survivors waited in darkness, knowing their civilization was about to end but hoping their knowledge would survive. The crystalline archives pulsed with stored information, science, art, history, and wisdom accumulated over millennia. 10 seconds. At the mining camps, Webb's team monitored communication channels, ready to transmit final intelligence updates to Earth if the seismic weapon achieved its intended effects. 5 seconds. Stonesinger's patterns shifted to brilliant intensity as they triggered the weapon sequence. Throughout the Guardian City, power systems began their cascade toward catastrophic overload. 3, 2, 1. The seismic weapon detonated with the force of a small star. Chapter 6, Resonance Cascade. The explosion began in the quantum resonance chambers deep beneath the Guardian City, where exotic matter maintained in crystalline matrices suddenly released energies equivalent to a major solar flare. The initial blast vaporized 3 kilometers of solid rock, creating a spherical cavity that immediately began collapsing under gravitational stress. But that was only the beginning. The quantum-coherent crystals that honeycombed Kepler 442c's crust had been entangled at the molecular level for millions of years, maintaining delicate resonance patterns that preserved quantum information across planetary distances. When the Guardian weapon destabilized the primary network nodes, the effects propagated at faster-than-light speeds through quantum tunneling effects. Every major crystal formation on the planet began resonating in harmony. Milena felt the first tremor as a subtle vibration through the reinforced walls of the command center. Then the geological scanner began registering seismic activity across a 200-kilometer radius. The readouts climbed steadily from minor tremor to moderate earthquake to geological catastrophe. "It's working," she whispered, watching the scanner display with professional fascination and personal terror. The quantum cascade was exceeding their most optimistic projections. Stonesinger's light patterns had shifted to rapid emergency frequencies, communicating with Guardian teams across the planet through quantum communication channels that remained functional despite the seismic chaos. The reports painted a picture of devastating effectiveness. Devourer excavation sites across 3 continents were collapsing as underground crystal formations destabilized. Surface installations built over major geological faults were being shaken apart by earthquakes that registered 8 and 9 on the seismic scale. Most importantly, the quantum crystal network itself was fragmenting beyond repair. Even if some devourers survived the geological catastrophe, they would find their primary objective permanently denied. The command center's reinforced walls groaned under seismic stress as the Guardian City began its final death throes. Emergency lighting flickered and failed, leaving only the bioluminescent glow of Stonesinger's communication patterns to illuminate their desperate situation. Evacuation route compromised, Stonesinger reported through increasingly urgent patterns. Primary thermal passages collapsed. Secondary routes unstable. They were trapped. The seismic weapon had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations, but the victory came with a terrible price. The handful of humans and Guardians remaining in the command center would not escape the destruction they had unleashed. Milena found herself thinking of Webb's team at the mining camps, safely beyond the blast radius and equipped with quantum communication technology. They would survive to carry word of this battle to Earth, to tell humanity about the Guardian Alliance and the sacrifice that had saved 2 species from extinction. It was enough. It had to be enough. The next tremor was stronger, violent enough to crack the crystalline displays and send equipment crashing across the command center floor. Stonesinger's patterns grew dim as structural damage disrupted the city's bioluminescent network, but their message remained clear: the cascade was reaching its peak. On the surface, Devourer ships were detecting the seismic disturbances and beginning emergency departure procedures. Their ground installations were being systematically destroyed by earthquakes that showed no signs of abating. The quantum crystal extraction operation had become a catastrophic failure. But their retreat would not save them. The quantum cascade was propagating through Kepler 442c's geological structure in ways that defied classical physics. Entangled crystals separated by thousands of kilometers were synchronizing their resonance patterns, creating interference effects that amplified seismic energy across continental distances. The planet itself was becoming a weapon. Devourer ships attempting orbital departure found themselves caught in gravitational anomalies as massive underground crystalline structures shifted their quantum states. Space-time distortions created by the cascade interfered with their navigation systems, trapping them in unstable orbits around a world that was literally tearing itself apart. Recovery Team Alpha, this is Guardian Command. Milena spoke into the quantum communicator, hoping Webb's team could still receive transmissions through the electromagnetic chaos. Weapon deployment successful. Devourer forces withdrawing. Recommend immediate transmission of all intelligence data to Earth. Webb's response was barely audible through static interference. Guardian Command, we copy. Intelligence packages already transmitted. Earth will know about the threat and the Alliance. You did it, Milena. You saved both species. The command center lurched sideways as a particularly violent tremor shifted the city's foundation. Crystalline support structures that had maintained the Guardian civilization for millennia finally began to fail under stress beyond their design parameters. Stonesinger approached Milena as debris rained down around them. The Guardians' light patterns carried complex emotional undertones, regret for the destruction, pride in their achievement, and something that might have been peace. Your people will survive, Stonesinger's patterns indicated. And ours will continue in the deep refuges. This alliance has saved us both. Milena nodded, understanding that she was witnessing the end of one civilization and the birth of something new. The Guardian knowledge preserved in the crystalline archives would find new homes in the thermal refuges. Human technology and Guardian wisdom would combine to create hybrid cultures capable of resisting future devourer incursions. The next generation would be stronger than either species alone. The final collapse came with surprising gentleness. The command center's walls simply dissolved as quantum effects disrupted the molecular bonds holding matter together. Stonesinger's bioluminescent patterns flickered one last time, a message of gratitude and farewell, before the Guardian vanished into cascading energy. Milena had time for one final thought as the seismic weapon claimed its ultimate victory: humanity would remember. Earth would learn about Kepler 442c, about the Guardian Alliance, about two species that had chosen to fight rather than surrender. The message was already racing across interstellar space at quantum speeds, carrying data that would change humanity's understanding of the galaxy and their place within it. She had kept her promise. Epilogue: New Foundations. Earth, 6 months later. Dr. Sarachin stood before the assembled delegates of the United Earth Government, the crystalline data core from Kepler 442c gleaming on the presentation podium behind her. The information it contained had revolutionized humanity's understanding of the galaxy and their place within it. The Guardian archives represent the most comprehensive record of galactic civilization we have ever encountered, she explained to the packed auditorium. Their knowledge spans over 50,000 years of observation and contact with hundreds of intelligent species across this region of space. The implications were staggering. Humanity was not alone in the galaxy, they were part of a complex ecosystem of intelligence that had been systematically hunted by predator species like the Devourers for millennia. The Guardian archives contained tactical information, technological specifications, and cultural records from dozens of extinct civilizations. More importantly, they contained the locations of other survivor communities. The quantum communication logs recovered from the mining camps include transmissions from 17 different species currently in hiding throughout the galaxy, Chen continued. The Guardians weren't the only ones to survive Devourer attacks, they were part of a resistance network that has been fighting this war for centuries. In the weeks following the Kepler 442c incident, Earth's quantum communication arrays had detected similar transmissions from across the galaxy. Hidden enclaves of survivors, isolated communities that had managed to escape destruction, and even entire star systems that had successfully repelled Devourer attacks. Humanity was being invited to join a galactic alliance. The Guardian sacrifice made this possible, Chen said, her voice carrying the weight of personal loss. She had known many of the colonists who died in the initial attack, and the survivors who had given their lives to deploy the seismic weapon. Their knowledge, combined with Guardian technology and human ingenuity, has given us weapons that can resist devourer forces. The technical breakthroughs were remarkable. Guardian quantum crystallization techniques could be adapted to human manufacturing processes, creating materials that were stronger and lighter than anything previously possible. Their thermal energy systems could power entire cities using geothermal sources that human technology couldn't tap. Most importantly, their biological sciences offered hope for the Guardian species itself. Kepler 442c, Deep Thermal Refuge 7. Stonesinger of deep currents was dying. The Guardian Elder lay on a crystalline platform that monitored biological functions through quantum field interactions, their bioluminescent communication patterns flickering weakly in the dim thermal refuge. Around them, the last survivors of Guardian civilization worked to preserve their species' knowledge and culture in an alien environment. The seismic weapon had succeeded beyond all expectations, but the cost had been devastating. The Guardian city was gone, along with most of their infrastructure and technological base. Only 3 of the deep thermal refuges had survived the planetary catastrophe, sheltering fewer than 1,000 individuals from a species that had once numbered in the millions. But they were alive. And they were not alone. Human engineers worked alongside Guardian technicians to adapt the refugees' life support systems for long-term habitation. The thermal refuges were marvels of engineering, but they had been designed as temporary shelters rather than permanent colonies. Converting them to support a sustainable population required innovations that combined Guardian biotechnology with human manufacturing techniques. Webb studied the latest reports from Earth with satisfaction. The intelligence packages transmitted from the mining camps had achieved their intended effect. Humanity was mobilizing for galactic war with an urgency that suggested they finally understood the scope of the threat they faced. More importantly, Earth was sending help. The first relief ships were already en route to Kepler 442c, carrying supplies, personnel, and technology to support both human and Guardian survivors. The journey would take months even with the fastest ships available, but quantum communication allowed real-time coordination of relief efforts. Status report from Terra Base, Webb announced to the mixed assembly of humans and Guardians gathered in the refuge's central chamber. Fleet Admiral Rodriguez confirms departure of the first support convoy. Estimated arrival in 4 months. Stonesinger's patterns flickered with something that might have been hope. The Elder had volunteered to remain in the command center during the seismic weapon deployment, expecting certain death. Their survival was due to quantum effects that had transported them to this refuge instead of destroying them, a side effect that Guardian scientists were still struggling to understand. But survival came with responsibility. The archives must be preserved, Stonesinger's weakening patterns indicated. Knowledge of the resistance network, technological specifications, cultural records, everything necessary for the Alliance to continue. Dr. Okafor, the sole remaining physician among the human survivors, monitored Stonesinger's condition with equipment that represented a fusion of human medical technology and Guardian biosystems. The diagnosis was grim but not hopeless. The Elder's quantum biological matrix was destabilizing, but slowly enough that their knowledge could be preserved. We're developing new crystalline storage techniques, Okafor reported. Guardian biotechnology combined with human quantum computing. We can transfer consciousness patterns to crystalline matrices that will preserve them indefinitely. It wasn't immortality, but it was continuity. Stonesinger's knowledge and memories could be preserved for future generations, contributing to the growing alliance between species that refused to surrender to predator civilizations. Sol System, Earth Orbital Shipyards. Admiral Rodriguez watched the construction crews complete work on humanity's first Guardian-enhanced starship with professional satisfaction and personal awe. The vessel represented a quantum leap in human technology, literally. Guardian quantum crystallization techniques had been adapted to create hull materials that could withstand energy weapons that would vaporize conventional starships. Their thermal management systems allowed sustained operation in environments that would destroy human technology. and their biological computers provided processing power that exceeded Earth's most advanced artificial intelligence systems. The ship was beautiful and terrible, a fusion of human engineering and Guardian biotechnology that created something entirely new. ETA to combat readiness? Rodriguez asked the lead engineer. 6 weeks for systems integration, came the reply. Another month for crew training on Guardian-enhanced systems. The biological computers require direct neural interface, it's taking time for our pilots to adapt. The integration challenges were immense. Guardian technology was fundamentally biological, evolved over millions of years to work with their unique physiology. Adapting it for human use required innovations in cybernetics, neural interfaces, and biological computing that pushed the boundaries of both species' scientific knowledge. But the results were worth the effort. Fleet composition update, Rodriguez's aide reported. 17 human vessels under construction or retrofit with Guardian enhancements. 8 Guardian biotechnological ships being grown in the thermal laboratories. And confirmation of allied vessels from 6 other resistance species. The alliance was growing. Each species contributed unique capabilities, some had energy weapons that could penetrate devourer shields, others possessed stealth technologies that could evade detection, and still others brought manufacturing capabilities that could support extended military campaigns. Together, they might be strong enough to take the war to the devourers instead of merely surviving their attacks. Kepler 442c, 1 year later. Milena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of Terra Base, watching construction crews complete the quantum communication array that would link Kepler 442c permanently to the Galactic Resistance Network. The facility was built into the mountainside where the Guardian City had once stood, its architecture combining human engineering with Guardian design principles. She was alive. The seismic weapon's quantum effects had transported her through spacetime itself, depositing her in the deep thermal refuges alongside Stonesinger and the other survivors. The experience had left her with a unique understanding of quantum crystallization processes that made her invaluable to the Alliance's research efforts. But more than that, it had given her a second chance. Status report from the Guardian Biotechnology Laboratories, Chen announced as he approached the observation deck. The chief engineer had become Terra Base's primary liaison with Guardian technical teams, coordinating projects that would have been impossible for either species alone. The first hybrid generation is stable, Milena replied, reviewing data displays that showed Guardian consciousness patterns successfully integrated with human quantum computing systems. Stonesinger's knowledge has been preserved, and they're able to communicate with both species through the crystalline interfaces. It wasn't resurrection, but it was continuation. Guardian elders who had volunteered to transfer their consciousness to crystalline storage provided continuity of knowledge and culture while the remaining biological guardians worked to rebuild their species. The hybrid technology had unexpected benefits for humans as well. Neural interfaces with Guardian biotechnology enhanced human cognitive capabilities, allowing accelerated learning and improved problem-solving abilities. The Alliance was creating beings who combined the best capabilities of both species. Fleet Admiral Rodriguez confirms readiness for the first offensive operation, Chen continued. Combined Human Guardian Task Force prepared for deployment to the Rigel system. The intelligence from Guardian archives had revealed a major Devourer staging area in the Rigel system, a forward base that coordinated attacks against dozens of worlds in this region of the galaxy. Destroying it would save countless civilizations while demonstrating that the predator species were not invulnerable. It would also be humanity's first test as members of the Galactic Resistance. Stonesinger wants to be included in the mission briefing, Milena said, gesturing toward the crystalline consciousness matrix that housed the Guardian Elders' preserved knowledge. They have tactical information about Devourer base configurations that could be crucial. The briefing took place in Terra Base's command center, a facility that would have been impossible to imagine a year earlier. Human officers worked alongside Guardian biotechnologists and representatives from 6 other Alliance species, coordinating military operations on a galactic scale. Stonesinger's consciousness spoke through crystalline displays that translated their thoughts into languages comprehensible to all present species. The information they provided was devastating in its implications. The Rigel base was one of dozens scattered across the galaxy, each one capable of coordinating attacks against hundreds of worlds. The Devourers weren't just predators. They were an invasion force preparing for systematic extermination of galactic civilization. Time frame for completing their objectives? Admiral Rodriguez asked. Stonesinger's response carried mathematical precision, based on historical patterns and observed resource collection rates, approximately 50 years until they achieve sufficient materials for their core construction project. After that, their expansion will accelerate exponentially. 50 years to save the galaxy. It seemed impossible, but the Alliance was growing stronger every day. Human innovation combined with Guardian wisdom and technologies from dozens of other species created capabilities that none could achieve alone. More importantly, they had something the Devourers lacked, the determination to fight for their survival and the knowledge that they were not alone in the darkness. Personal log, Dr. Milena Vasquez, final entry. It's been exactly 1 year since the attack on New Valencia, and I find myself thinking about the choices that brought us to this moment. A year ago, I was a geophysicist studying planetary formation in humanity's most distant colony. Today, I'm helping coordinate military operations for a galactic alliance against enemies who want to exterminate all intelligent life. The transformation has been remarkable, but also deeply personal. I've lost friends, watched civilizations burn, and witnessed sacrifices that still bring tears to my eyes. But I've also seen two species discover they're stronger together than apart, and I've helped build something that neither humans nor Guardians could have achieved alone. Stonesinger's consciousness exists now in crystalline matrices that preserve their knowledge and personality while allowing them to communicate with the Alliance. They tell me that Guardian philosophy emphasizes the continuity of information rather than the persistence of individual biological forms. In a sense, they've achieved a form of immortality through technology, and they're using that eternal perspective to help us understand the true scope of what we're fighting for. The Devourers aren't just another hostile species. They're entropy made manifest, predators who consume the galaxy's accumulated knowledge and creativity, leaving dead worlds in their wake. But they've made a critical error. They underestimated the power of cooperation. The Alliance grows stronger every day. Human ships enhanced with Guardian biotechnology patrol star systems that were considered lost causes a year ago. Guardian knowledge preserved in crystalline storage helps other species develop defensive technologies. And everywhere, civilizations that thought they were alone are discovering they're part of something larger. Webb's team saved 47 people from the ruins of New Valencia. That small group has become the nucleus of an alliance that spans hundreds of worlds and dozens of species. Sometimes I think about the mathematics of that transformation, how 47 survivors have become the foundation for a resistance movement that might save the galaxy. But then I remember that it wasn't just numbers. It was choices. The choice to keep fighting when hope seemed lost. The choice to trust allies from another species. The choice to sacrifice everything to preserve knowledge and possibility for future generations. The Devourers made their choice millennia ago, to consume rather than create, to destroy rather than preserve. Now they're learning that the galaxy remembers, and it's ready to fight back. My name is Dr. Milena Vasquez, formerly of New Valencia Colony, currently of Terra Base. I was present for the first alliance between humans and Guardians, and I watched both species choose courage over surrender. The war for the galaxy has begun, and we will not yield.